When we get near the finish line, it is an all-out sprint. Who can hold their nerve the longest? Who can push through the pain? Who can take the win? Well, that all sounds very dramatic. We are back racing again, and this time it is with the category Bs, so I'll probably get my arse kicked. Will I be able to keep up, and where will I finish? Zwift bumped me up to category B after a race the other day, so here I am in all my glory, lining up with some strong riders. But as with all rides or races or whatever the hell I'm doing on my channel, I don't want to do it in halves, so I'm going to go all out and hopefully I get a good result in this race. The route. I have learned from a few races that knowing the route is pretty critical. No one likes racing blind as it's too easy to get caught out on the hills and get left behind in the virtual smoke. So off to Zwift Insider I went to see what I'd got myself into. Downtown Dolphin is the name of the route. Now this is a crit racing route. Now a crit race is a bicycle race of a specified number of laps on a closed course over public roads. This route is virtual, so it's always closed to the public. The route features dead turns, an uphill prime section, a lap counter, sharp corners, sight lines on city streets. It's a pretty decent route, to be honest, with enough twists and turns to keep it entertaining. I'll be doing 8 laps, so I'll be learning the course as I go. The brains, the mastermind, the strategy. What strategy? This is my third Zwift race and my first race in category B. So the strategy is not to get dropped. In all seriousness, if I can stay with the group or the lead group, then I'll be able to secure a decent-ish finish. Obviously, I'm going to try and save as much energy as possible in the draft, but in reality, I've been jumped up to Cat B, so maybe I'll get my arse handed to me. Let's see, it's going to be entertaining. Now, out of the blocks, I kept it relatively steady. Now, I have learned since that a bigger effort at the start will keep me with the front runners. Now, luckily, in this case, we all bunched back together like penguins in the cold. I was holding over 300 watts to stay with the bunch, which is pretty normal at the start of a Cat B race. Since this race, I've done many more, so I can see things that I could have done differently. If only future Jordan could speak to past Jordan, that would have helped. About a third into the first loop, the pavement turns into brick and the prime section begins. This is a 200 meter, 4% incline uphill section. It's the only time segment on this crit route, and it's where you'll see attacks each and every lap. If you get caught napping, then you can easily get dropped here. I know it's only 200 meters, but a few people get away, you are going to be smoked. So up the hill, you can see the watts increase for each rider. It's a knock-on effect. One person pushes, then everyone pushes. So over 300 watts will ensure that I stay with the main group. As I'm riding, I'm making mental notes about how much power is needed in different parts of the route. That way in future laps, I know what is coming. As long as no one decides to put the afterburners on and leave us all for dust, which, well, you'll find out. Towards the end of the loop, we have some like racetrack-like rollers where the speed is quite high. Again, I don't want to lose the wheel of the person in front, or it will likely be game over for me. I like to pump a little bit on these rollers. It feels like you can boost a little on the downhill. I stayed with the bunch and I was actually in a good position. I say good position because I was at the back of the group, which meant that I was getting a good draft. So after the first lap, the power dropped a little, and having done races since this one, that is pretty common. At the start and the first few miles, the power is high, then it drops down. This is why it's worth putting a lot of effort in at the start to make sure you stay with the group, because eventually you'll get a little rest, he says optimistically. Second time up the hill and I nearly got caught out. I wasn't paying enough attention. Now this is how easy it is to get dropped. Remember, this is my first time on this route. Luckily, I was able to join the lead group, but it was a close call. Again, over 300 watts to keep up. I should explain that drafting is included in Zwift racing. So when you are behind people, you have less wind resistance, so you can put less effort in to do the same speed. That is why it's so important to stay with the group. So you can see there is a natural flow to this race. On the hill, there is a push. Then on the rollers, there is also a little push. In between them, it's a little more relaxed. So in hindsight is a wonderful thing, I could have made this slightly easier on myself by putting more power down in those tougher sections. Let's talk about power-ups, because I'm sure people are watching and probably yelling at the screen saying use your power-ups. And I understand why. To be honest, I hadn't realised the power of the power-ups. Plus, I didn't have my keyboard or mouse in reach. Again, hindsight is a wonderful thing. I could have made it much easier on myself using the power-ups at difficult times in the race. Now, the race went on, and in the same manner for the next few laps, the natural flow continued. I basically tried to get a rest on the flat sections and then push harder on the short climb and the rollers. One nice thing with this route is a constant change in scenery and direction. In a strange way, the virtual world is pretty scenic. It takes away the monotony of pedaling indoors, looking at a wall basically. So let's jump forward, let's jump ahead to lap 6, and we aren't doing too bad, to be honest. The pace seems to have slowed a little. I think people are saving their legs for the final lap and getting ready to boost for the hill. Having said that, we get to the hill this lap and it's 400 watts just to stay with the bunch. One thing I will mention is the mentality and mental strength you gain from these races. Since this race, I've done many more, as I said earlier, and taking myself to the limit seems easier than when I did this race initially. Now, in a weird way, you get used to the suffering and you can take yourself to that place much easier. That's my theory anyway. Back to the race, and as we go over the line for the last time, we are still in a bunch. So as long as I stay with the group, it will be a sprint to the line at the end of the lap. Honestly, I'm struggling at this point. I've been pushing the power for 20 minutes now, trying to stay with the group. My legs were simply not used to this level of effort. My poor legs. The lactic acid is currently at a level where my whole existence knows about it. There is nothing I can do. Buckle up. It's going to be tough. So up the final hill, I stay with the group. Important, I've learnt from the previous laps. Then I try to drop back a little to get a draft. The power is picking up as we head into the rollers with 0.3 miles to go. I'm currently 16th. However, this isn't such a bad thing, again, because I can get the draft of the group. And that is exactly what happened. Now my legs are crying, I'm crying. Then at 0.1 miles to go to the line, I go for an all-out sprint. And it wasn't a bad effort. I managed to push forward past a few riders. I must have had the draft, which actually felt amazing, to be honest. And as I head over the line, I'm in 8th place. Now, considering there were 46 riders and this was my first Cat B race, I am chuffed with that result. Not too shabby at all. My final stats didn't look too bad either, which is promising for future races, so subscribe if you want to see those. Thumbs up if you enjoyed this one and enjoyed seeing me suffer. I will see you in the next one. Self-love and safe riding.